But anyway, let's move on. Phani Sekhar and Kunal Bothra now join us for closing chat. Phani, hi, good afternoon. First, a word on EROS. I mean, if you track it or if you track the development, even if you don't have a call on the stock and what's going on in the stock right now.
I have not tracked that, Anuj.
Okay, fair enough. So let's move on. In terms of Nifty stocks, we've seen big moves today in Power Grid. What's the call here?
Well, I'm not very closely tracking that, Anuj, so I will let it pass.
Any thoughts on how to approach the stocks like TVS Motor that have reported not only a good quarter but very good sales numbers as well?
Well, that's a space that is giving you very interesting divergence. So while on one hand you had Bajaj Auto, which relied a whole lot on exports as well as three-wheelers, not delivering a good set of numbers, you had Hero and TVS, which both rely a whole lot on domestic economy, delivering good sales numbers. So I think what you can infer here very safely is probably, however, this being a festive season, though, but probably there is some kind of a demand revival that is coming back there. This quarter is expected to be good. What's important is how you look at sales numbers from January to March. Having said that, since valuations, especially in stocks like Hero, had been pretty beaten down, I guess there is a good case that you can see good amount of interest coming back into this sector, especially Hero and TVS for the next 3 months or so.
Okay. Kunal Bothra is also with us. Kunal, good afternoon. A word on the Nifty. We had a flat day yesterday in terms of the kind of recovery intraday we saw, but today we have seen the early morning gains were given up.
Yeah, I think Anuj, it's been a choppy sort of the last 2 days. Yesterday the markets opened gap down. There was a break of 8,000 level. We broke that marginally intraday, and then there was a second attempt where we broke that low also, which we made intraday, and then the markets sort of suddenly rallied at the end. Today also the markets open on a gap up note. You saw some bit of strength happening in couple of counters, large cap spaces, but at the second half it's a completely different texture. What the markets are actually leaving behind. So I think if you try and summarize the last 2 days, it just kind of tells you the feeling that the markets are going through this painful process of consolidation till the time we don't see any sort of breakout on Bank Nifty, which surprisingly over the last 4 days has remained in the range of just about 300, 270 or 300 odd points. Very surprising for a high beta index like that. So I think till the time we don't see that happening, because the IT and the pharma stocks are really doing nothing. The other metal stocks, etc. Most of these sectors are taking a bit of range-based consolidation. So I think it's just about Bank Nifty which has to lead the next breakout. So I think if there is any sort of a correction due in the market, I think has to be led by Bank Nifty.
All right. Kunal, just since the market has quietened down, and Varinder was telling you about so many new stocks that you haven't heard about, let's get Mr. Tulsian into this discussion as well, because he has identified one stock for the long-term investor to look at, and it's called Cheviot. It's into the manufacturing of jute products, tea and leather. Mr. Tulsian, tell us about that story.
See, Sonia, in fact, their main 90% of the income comes from the jute products, that is jute fabrics and jute products. And in fact, if you see, they have the 2 manufacturing plant. One is in SEZ, which is catering entirely to the export market, and one for the domestic one. 45% of their income comes from the exports, and they are catering to the developed market, that is UK, US, Netherlands, Germany, and all sort of things, where the price is not the criteria. And we all know the kind of preference for these organic products or maybe the jute products abroad, where when the people in the developed countries are prepared to pay 10 to 15% higher for the green power, one can understand that what kind of price. It's not very price sensitive. They have a very good advantage on the realizations. If you go by their financial performance, if I just take the Q1, top line 63 crore, PAT of 10 crore and operating profit of 15 crore. That means they have a 25% operating profit margin, 15% PAT margin overall, and with an EPS of 23 rupees for Q1. That means if if I extrapolate the present trend, FY15 was about 76-77 rupees EPS. I am comfortably expecting 90 to 100 rupees as the EPS for FY16. And if you really see the company's structure, 4.5 crore equity, the book value is about maybe 725 rupees by 31st March 2016. That means it is available below book value. And if you see the share, this has been moving on for the last maybe about 1 month or so. It has moved up by about 100 rupees, but still I see a lot of potential. Again, as I said, company has about 30 crore cash. It's a 75% promoter holding, and as I said, book value is 725. And if I keep on adding 100 rupees EPS every year by knocking off the dividend also, which the company is paying, it's a quite interesting stock. And in fact, volume also, if you see, average volume is about 15 to 20,000 shares every day. So one can take a safe call that yes, in next 6 months or so, one can see a price of about 1,000 rupees or so.
Okay, Mr. Tulsian, let's revisit your morning call also for Harita Seeding. That's locked on upper circuit. What's the price target on this one for you?
Anuj, I gave a price target of 400 rupees in 6 months, so it has gone up by maybe, I think today it is frozen upward at about 323. Yeah. So I won't revise those targets, but I'm quite bullish because actually sometimes these targets are meaningless if you have a long-term view. Yes, one can always review in fact, those who have bought maybe, or can look to exit at 350, 360 also, because all people cannot take such a long-term call because they cannot face the volatility. You won't see the share going up one way. You may see prices moving up to 350, 360, then some correction. But yes, as of now, the target of 400 rupees which I gave this morning in next 6 months is being maintained.
Alright, well, in key earnings to watch, of course, Tech Mahindra is also to release its numbers in a bit, and that's one stock we have been watching out for. Here's Reema Tendulkar with all the expectations.
First, the expectations. Dollar revenue growth is seen higher by 2.1% QOQ. Rupee revenues up 4.5%. Margins are seen improving by 170 basis points to 13.8%, which drives about an 8.5% growth in the profitability. All this on a quarter-on-quarter basis. This top line growth of about 2% will be driven by some recovery in the telecom business, which has been lagging for the last many quarters, while the other part of the business, the enterprise segment, will continue to show you some momentum. If you look at it on a constant currency basis, the expectations are of a 2.7-2.8% growth. Margins are seen higher, as we pointed out, 170 basis points higher according to our poll, and that will be on account of an improvement in utilization, the absence of visa costs which impacted them in the prior quarter, some currency benefit. If you see the stock price, in February it was at levels of 750, and then it collapsed all the way down to 450. So that's a 300 rupee fall on a base of 750 in the month of June or July, and that's because the company's revenues as well as margins had faltered. So what the street wants to see is an improvement in margins, some recovery there, as well as a stable top line performance with some growth coming back into the telecom business. So that will be the key focus area. Back to you.
All right, Reema, thanks for that. Well, the market has actually moved to the low point, so it's moved now into the red, and it'll be what, the 7th straight session that the market is closing in the red. We haven't been able to see any kind of recovery or any kind of momentum above this 8,050 to 8,100 mark, and two stocks that are dragging now. One of them is L&T. That one has moved down, in only one direction post its numbers, and that's downwards. And the other one is ICICI Bank. If you pull that stock up for you, it's suddenly seen a fall in the last 10 minutes or so. ICICI Bank now down about 0.5% or so.
And that's the problem for the Bank Nifty, Sonia, because as we discussed in the morning, Bank Nifty is essentially two stocks, ICICI Bank and HDFC. They combine for 55% of your Bank Nifty weight. One of them has a bad day like ICICI has had in last 10 or 15 minutes of trade, and you're down. And the other problem is, of course, these three stocks, HDFC, ITC and Larsen & Toubro. They are clearly not providing the support for the market. In fact, for Larsen & Toubro now, it's a bit of a crunching bear market. Let's pull out the chart of Larsen & Toubro over the last 6 months, and you will notice that the stock actually just about 3 months back made a 52-week high, and from that point on it's fallen 27% or so. So that's a 6-month chart. As you could see, it was rising up until July, maybe August, made a new 52-week high, and from that point on it's been a one-way down fall for Larsen & Toubro, and that's not a good sign. Parag, a word on the kind of movement we have seen in L&T.
Yeah, so basically the point which I am trying to make is that in L&T is a 80,000 crore business. It's a 80,000 crore revenue business. So you need to have 12,000 crore new execution to grow at 15%. And for 12,000 crore execution, you need 30,000 crore of orders. So and the pie itself is not growing to that extent. It has started growing, but it is happening in few verticals only. For example, roads are seeing lot of traction, renewable energy is seeing lot of traction, but lot of things like commodity related capex, oil related, those kind of capex globally are down. So I think for L&T it's a problem of size and some of the verticals faltering. And I would not say that entire infra pack should be considered as a no because of L&T's performance or L&T's guidance. Because I think the smaller companies with 3,000 crore top line or only one vertical, which is roads, they get a single order of 1,000 crore, which grows their order book by 30% in a single day. So I think L&T, the problem is its own problem. It is about size and it is about some of the verticals not doing well.
Okay, well, we just have about 2 more minutes left. Those are Finolex Cables numbers look quite muted actually. It's a fall that you're seeing in the total income of 5%, in the profits as well it's a fall, so nothing really to write home about for Finolex Cables, and that stock is absolutely flat. But we just have about 2 more minutes left for the end of trade, so let's just take you through what the day has looked like. It's been a largely flat day for the market, very range bound. But then you'd have to say that it's the 7th straight session that the market may close in the red, and that's not a good sign. The upside seems to be capped, at least for the time being, and it seems like that's purely because of no earnings momentum or weak earnings coming in. So look at the key heavyweights. Lupin, that one was under pressure this earnings season. L&T was under pressure. ITC, Axis Bank, Asian Paints, all the top losers are companies that have either not delivered or disappointed this quarter around. Tata Motors and Tata Steel are also under pressure today, down about 1 to 1.5%. And apart from all of the names that I mentioned, Bharti from the heavyweights is also dragging its feet, so down almost about 1% today. On the upside, the power companies did well. NTPC, Power Grid, both up in the green. You had the auto companies that did well, post a good October sales from M&M. That continues its traction. Hero MotoCorp had a fabulous scooter sales this time. That is on the upside. And a couple of other names like Infosys, TCS from the IT space also did quite well. Reliance was not bad, up about 0.5% or so. But suffice to say, Anuj, the weakness in earnings that we've got has kept the market upside capped.
Oh yes, it has. Though to be honest, today of course the adjusted closing would be in the green because it would take the averages. So the final rate that you would see on the Nifty would still be in the green. But for all practical purposes, the market is ending almost at low point of the day, and the story of the day has been that the morning gap was sold into. But let's talk about some of the mid caps as well. Tilak Nagar Industries was up 17%. Your stock of the day probably was MTech Auto. That was up 14%, big volumes on that one. It does not have the overhang of F&O trading anymore. It's not an F&O stock anymore. So what you saw today was a lot of this would have been of course intraday trading, but some of this could have been delivery as well. So that's something we'll be watching out for. KRBL and the entire rice sector did well. Dishman made a new life high, so it's been phenomenal run on Dishman all through this year. 215% higher now for year to date on Dishman Pharma. TVS Motor is also in the green. And on the losing side, we have Suzlon that was down about 5%. Apollo Tyres, that continues its correction, down about 4%. So not looking good as far as that is concerned. A word on volumes, 15,000 crore in cash market. So not large volumes. You'll see the updated rate on the Nifty in just about 10 or 15 seconds. For now, let's get back to our guest then and get some final thoughts. Mr. Tulsian, a word on Dishman Pharma, which it's showing no signs of stopping.
That's right, Anuj. In fact, I'm not honestly convinced now with these kind of valuations, because if you see their numbers also, they were not very fabulous that one can really call that this momentum should be continued from here on. The kind of run-up which we have seen in this last couple of months, in fact, cannot just be attributed purely on fundamentals. Some momentum play is there. So definitely, I don't know whether it will swiftly correct from here on, but I won't be taking a plunge into the stock now at these rates.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we are expecting Tech Mahindra's numbers pretty soon. Phani, your call on IT sector?
Well, reasonably constructive there, Anuj. Simply because we have seen that the volume growth has been okay, considering that it was a tad below expectations, but generally over the last 2 years it's been reasonably okay. We expect that the currency tailwind, apart from the volume growth, should continue to provide the necessary returns for this sector. More importantly, the sector is quite reasonably valued compared to other defensives. So I believe that more or less the large 4-5 companies should continue to deliver around 15 to 18% return for longer term investors.
Okay, Parag, you have a preferred pick in IT space?
So IT space, we continue to like Infosys, and eClerx is one stock which we like in the mid-cap space. But overall Q3 is seasonally weak for the sector, and global growth scenario, energy prices are not in favor. So I think that second half will be muted for most of the companies, barring few. In IT space, we remain more bullish on, as I have earlier indicated, that utilities, which is NTPC Power Grid, because of the most secured and predictable cash flows and very reasonable valuations, and domestic cyclicals like cement, something like Grasim, which we like because there is a good holding company discount now with Ultratech. So in large cap space, we like those companies, and in mid cap space, as we discussed, road construction and renewable energy. Those are our favorite picks.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We'll let all of you go and enjoy your evening and see you again later on. We leave the markets flat today, 8,060 on the Nifty. The Bank Nifty has closed a tad bit in the red, but there was more traction coming in the mid-cap space. We'll take a break. Coming up, CNBC TV 18 travels across several districts of Bihar.